The rain fell heavily, obscuring the sinister glow of the red eyes Detective Ricardo saw in the window. A woman's scream echoed through the dark night, abruptly cut short. It was Isabella, the modern witch, the only one who believed in his paranormal cases. Ricardo ran, his heart pounding in his chest, the icy water mingling with the fear that coursed through his veins. Isabella was in danger! But who would dare confront such a powerful witch? And more importantly, what did those red eyes want? The rain fell as if the sky were weeping tears of fire, each icy drop that hit Ricardo's face a warning. A warning of danger, a warning of fear, a warning of something much worse. He ran, the darkness of the night seeming to engulf him. With each step, the image of the red eyes, shining like infernal embers, became more vivid in his mind. Isabella's scream, a sharp sound full of terror, still echoed in his ears, cut short as abruptly as it had begun, leaving a terrifying void in the air. It was as if someone had simply turned off her voice. Ricardo felt his heart beat strongly, as loud as the thunder that now roared in the sky. He had known Isabella for a short time, but he already felt for her an admiration mixed with an affection he himself couldn't understand. She was different from all the other people he knew. Isabella, with her hair as black as night and eyes that reflected the wisdom of centuries, was a witch. Yes, but a modern witch, who wore jeans and a leather jacket under her long dresses, who spoke of magic as if she were commenting on the weather. She wasn't a ghostly figure from fairy tales, but a woman of flesh and blood, with her fears and insecurities, who believed in him, in his strange cases, in his encounters with the supernatural. And because of that, she was in danger. Isabella's house was an old colonial building, surrounded by twisted trees and a shadowy garden. The rain beat against the windows, as if trying to get in, but Ricardo approached determinedly, like a medieval knight facing a dragon. The door was ajar, revealing a dark and silent room. The silence was worse than the noise of the storm. It was a heavy silence, charged with a strange energy that sent shivers down his spine. Ricardo called out for Isabella, his voice almost a whisper, lost in the fury of the rain. No answer. The fear, which had previously been a cold discomfort in his stomach, was now a voracious monster, wanting to devour him whole. He entered the house, his feet sinking into a soft, damp carpet. The atmosphere was oppressive, filled with a strange, sweet, and sickening perfume, as if a garden of dead flowers were decomposing right there. He searched for Isabella. Living room, kitchen, office. Nothing. Only old books and strange objects that seemed to pulse with an invisible energy. In one corner, an old Venetian mirror reflected a distorted image of his trembling figure. A shiver ran down his spine. It was as if the mirror was watching him, judging him. He could feel the presence of something there, invisible, but profoundly malevolent. Suddenly, an old book fell from the shelf, opening to a specific page. Ricardo picked it up, the faded cover bearing a strange inscription in a language he had never seen. The open page showed a disturbing drawing. 2 concentric circles, one dark red and the other bright blue, interconnected by sinuous lines that seemed pulsating. And in the center of the circles, 2 luminous points, one red, one blue, mirroring the eyes he had seen in the window. It was then that Ricardo realized. It wasn't just an attack on Isabella. It was something much bigger, something that crossed worlds, dimensions. Those red eyes were a connection, a doorway to another place, a dark and powerful place. And Isabella, with her magic, was the key that allowed this passage, the key that those with red eyes so desired. At that moment, a scream from the cellar made Ricardo flinch. It wasn't Isabella's scream. It was a different scream, full of pain and agony, a scream that cut like glass. It was a scream of suffering, a scream that froze him with terror. He knew he had to go down there, that he had to save Isabella, even if it meant facing the unknown, even if it meant facing hell itself. With each step Ricardo took towards the cellar, the stronger the feeling that he was entering a nightmare from which he might not return. The darkness seemed to suck him in. With each step the feeling of terror became more intense. He felt the presence of evil, a presence that penetrated him, touched him, haunted him. But Ricardo was not a man easily intimidated. He had a mission. He had to save Isabella, and he would, no matter the cost. The cold, damp air of the cellar invaded Ricardo's nostrils, a smell of wet earth and something else. Something metallic, almost like blood. The stairs creaked under his feet, each step a countdown to the unknown. The only light came from the faint glow of his cell phone, a tiny point of hope in the immense darkness. The scream, that terrible scream, had fallen silent, but the echo of its agony continued to vibrate in the air. A ghostly specter. Ricardo advanced, his hand outstretched on the cold, damp wall, searching for something, anything that could give him a foothold, a sense of security in that labyrinth of shadows. With each step, the heavy silence returned with more force, as if the darkness itself were waiting, lurking, ready to attack him. He imagined giant spiders crawling along the walls, shadows transforming into horrendous monsters, and this made him even more scared than he already was. Suddenly, he stumbled on something soft, a body. He let out a muffled cry, almost a groan of horror. With trembling hands, he turned on his cell phone's light, revealing a scene that chilled him to the bone. It was a man, unconscious, lying on the ground, with a deep wound on his arm, bleeding profusely. The blood was dark, almost black, and had a strange, almost metallic sheen. Ricardo knelt down, examining the man. He was tall, thin, with dark hair and a pale, almost translucent face that seemed to glow with a strange inner light. Ricardo realized, with a shock of recognition, that it was the same man he had seen peering from among the trees before the attack, the one who had watched him with those infernal red eyes. How had he gotten there? And what did he want with Isabella? While examining the injured man, Ricardo heard a noise coming from the back of the cellar. A soft but constant noise, like a whisper coming from the depths. It was a noise that filled the soul with a sinister feeling of foreboding, the foreboding of something terrible about to happen. A chill spread down his spine, a feeling of terror that froze the blood in his veins. What was hidden in the shadows? And what would be worse, discovering the answer or continuing without knowing? He knew he couldn't leave the man there, but fear paralyzed him. It was a deep, irrational fear. The fear of the unknown, the fear of what lay beyond the faint light of his cell phone. He had to make a decision, and quickly. Help the injured man, risking facing whatever was back there, or run away, leaving the unknown to deal with the unknown. The decision wasn't easy. He didn't trust the injured man. He knew that something very dangerous had happened there, but that was a human being, and Ricardo still had a code of honor, a moral compass that guided him. However, something told him that this man was not just a common aggressor, that he was part of something much darker. That strange glow on the man's skin, the almost black blood, the whisper in the shadows, everything screamed danger at him. A danger that threatened not only Isabella, but the entire balance between the two worlds. He realized that the key to everything was close, in a place that his fear urged him to avoid, and that was where he had to go. An icy premonition told him that time was running out. Whatever was waiting at the back of the cellar wouldn't wait forever. The rain hammered the roof of the old colonial house, a frantic rhythm that accompanied the wild beating of Ricardo's heart. The body of the fallen man, with almost translucent skin and black blood, lay inert at his feet, a silent warning of the danger that surrounded him. The whisper of the shadows, coming from the depths of the cold, damp cellar, was a dark call, a promise of something terrible. Ricardo hesitated, torn between the duty to help the injured and the survival instinct that screamed at him to run away. But the image of Isabella, the strength of his unexpected affection, the courage he admired in her gaze, propelled him forward. He couldn't leave Isabella at the mercy of that dark danger. Not this time. The faint light of his cell phone barely illuminated the path, painting strange, threatening shapes on the stone walls. With each step, the metallic smell of blood intensified, mixing with the damp odor of the earth and a sickening perfume, like that of dead flowers. The whisper of the shadows became more intense, more audible, a lament that penetrated to the bones. Ricardo felt the presence, close, malignant, tangible as a cold mist. He trembled, not only from the cold, but from the ancestral fear that welled up from within, a visceral response to something primordially evil. Then he saw it. At the back of the cellar, in a small opening in the stone wall, A reddish light pulsed, like a black heart beating strongly. It was a light that hurt the eyes, that burned the soul. Around this light, shadows danced, undefined shapes that writhed and twisted like infernal snakes. Ricardo understood. That was the portal, the breach between the two worlds. And the injured man, he was just a pawn, a disposable instrument in the hand of a superior force. A deep roar, a cry of rage and pain, echoed from the portal, making the earth tremble under Ricardo's feet. A gigantic, dark, and nebulous figure began to emerge from the opening, as if breaking the barriers of reality. Its eyes, two incandescent red points, fixed themselves on Ricardo, radiating a cold and intense hatred that froze the blood in the detective's veins. It was a nightmare creature, an incarnation of darkness, a being of unimaginable power. The creature advanced, its immense body filling almost the entire cellar. Ricardo felt a wave of heat emanating from it, a wave that pushed him, drowned him, stole his breath. He clung to a piece of wood, his white, trembling fingers clinging with all his might. His fear was immense, but the memory of Isabella's muffled scream, the image of her bright eyes full of hope, gave him strength. He couldn't give up. He couldn't let this creature destroy Isabella. He had to fight, even knowing that the chances were minimal. At that moment, Ricardo understood the meaning of the inscription in the old book. The concentric circles, the red and the blue, the pulsation of the sinuous lines. Isabella had told him about the energy that flowed between worlds, the energy that fueled magic. And he realized that the key was not only in Isabella's hands, but also in his ability to face fear, to overcome his limits, to fight for love. The love for Isabella, a force as powerful as any magic. The monster roared again, ready to attack him. Ricardo, closing his eyes, took a deep breath, concentrating all his energy, all his fear, all his determination at a single point. He had no magical powers, no supernatural weapons, only his courage, his faith, his love for Isabella. And that, he knew, was more than enough to face the shadows. Deep in his heart, he heard the echo of his own voice, a determined, defiant voice that echoed in the abyss of darkness. "I won't let you take her, no matter who you are!" The creature lunged, its immense shadow engulfing Ricardo. He braced himself for the impact, but instead, he felt a shock wave that threw him against the wall, the air escaping his lungs in a silent scream. The creature, monstrous, was more terrifying up close. Scales as dark as night, red eyes shining like infernal embers, claws as sharp as obsidian blades. Fear paralyzed Ricardo for a moment, but the memory of Isabella's hopeful eyes broke the spell of terror. He had to fight, for her, for himself, for that thin thread that united them, and that this creature wanted to destroy. Then, something unexpected happened. An intense blue light exploded from Ricardo's jacket pocket, projecting itself onto the creature. It was a small amulet, a pendant that Isabella had given him without much explanation, saying only that it was for protection. The pendant shone with incredible intensity, creating an energy field that repelled the creature, making it recoil a step, a growl of fury escaping its mouth. The creature writhed, its scales seeming to crack under the impact of the blue light, its roar echoing through the damp cellar. Ricardo seized the opportunity, rising quickly. He didn't know what was happening, but he felt the energy of the amulet flowing in his veins, strengthening him. He grabbed a piece of wood, and, with a strength he didn't know he possessed, struck the creature with all his fury. The blow hit the creature at a vulnerable point, and the red light in its body diminished. The creature stumbled, a sharp cry of pain escaping its mouth, before it disappeared in a blur of black shadows, returning to the portal. The portal, however, did not close. The blue light in the pendant began to diminish, and the intense glow slowly faded. Ricardo felt his strength ebb away, his body heavy and trembling. He was exhausted, but relieved. He had survived. At least for now. But the battle wasn't over. The silence that followed the creature's departure was more terrifying than any roar. A heavy silence, charged with a sinister expectation. Then, Ricardo heard a sound coming from the back of the cellar. A sound unlike anything he had ever heard before. A musical sound. A strangely beautiful melody, but profoundly unsettling, like a lament of a fallen angel. He approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. The melody became stronger, clearer as he approached. He reached the deepest corner of the cellar, and his blood ran cold. On the stone wall, the opening to the portal was still there, now emitting a soft, bluish light. And inside the portal, he saw Isabella. Not the Isabella he knew, however. This Isabella was different, more beautiful, more luminous, but her eyes were red and bright, like infernal embers. She smiled at Ricardo, a cold, empty smile that filled him with indescribable terror. A smile that promised something much worse than any creature of darkness. And she whispered, her voice sweet and melodious, as soft as a lullaby. "Welcome to my world, Ricardo. Now you are one of us."